Hello. So today is going to be a special episode where we have a guest star, and this is Ariel, a creator of a new Ruby on Rails gem that should replace the gem Cocoon, and the gem's name is VanillaNested. So Ariel, can you tell something about yourself?
Sure, great. Thanks for having me here. I'm Ariel. I'm from Argentina. I'm a Rails developer since 2010, I think, and I've been doing mostly Ruby on Rails over the last 10 or 11 years. And I remember at some point during my career, I had to start migrating off from jQuery on the project because we wanted to optimize and request times and those things. And we were using the gem Cocoon. And I was really struggling to remove jQuery because I have all those gems with dependencies. And at that time, I couldn't find any replacement for Cocoon that will use just vanilla JavaScript. And I started just doing some things in-house for that. And over the years, I found that it was an interesting idea to create a gem to actually have that available for everyone, and to also update with the more modern things in Ruby on Rails, like I don't know, using Webpacker. So yeah, I decided a few years ago to create this gem. It will be like it's a similar gem to Cocoon. It helps you add input fields dynamically or remove input fields dynamically for your nested forms. But it uses vanilla JavaScript, so it has no extra dependencies. And it has some features that are different than Cocoon. I think more advanced features like undoing changes or some different events for the user to really connect to different parts of the process to really customize the experience. And yeah, I think a few weeks ago, I released a new version of the gem. I fixed some bugs that were there for some time, but I got the time to finish fixing those and release the new version.
Yeah, actually, I know Cocoon is one of the gems that I've been using in most of my applications, and I really love the feature of being able to like dynamically add or remove fields inside a form. And one thing that has been really holding me back since Rails 6 was released, so now you really try to keep away from using jQuery, and like when I Google something, I always try to find a solution that doesn't use jQuery. And Cocoon has this jQuery dependency, and I didn't like the idea of installing jQuery just to use this gem. And I remember Cocoon had a few issues about like open issues about rewriting Cocoon in vanilla, and it's already quite an old gem, so it's really cool that now you've made some fresh vanilla code, and we wouldn't be needing to use jQuery anymore. So maybe let's have a look at the gem and how it works.
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen. Okay, so the gem, like in most modern Rails gem that needs some assets in JavaScript, it consists in two things. One thing is the gem, and there's also a node package for that. So it's all in the same package here. So you can use this gem. If you are not using Webpacker, you just use the gem, like gem VanillaNested, and it works with sprockets out of the box. And if you want to use it with Webpacker, you also need to add the node package or using Yarn. And right now it's pointing to my GitHub repo. It's not in yarnpackages.com. And you only need to add the import in your application.javascript. I think at some point, I didn't know how to set up this thing to Webpack properly, and you had to manually copy the JavaScript file in your JavaScript folders. But now it's just it's a whole package. It's work with older Rails version with sprockets or with newer version with Webpacker.
Cool.
So the gem consists in two parts. It includes helpers that you can use on your backend, and it includes some JavaScript that will connect your the tags that the helpers created with all the dynamic part of it in your client, in the client side. So let me show you the part of the code here. So if you are familiar with Cocoon, it has two helpers basically. You have the link to add association and the link to remove association. I was inspired by that gem and by the Rails cast from Ryan, I don't remember the name,
yeah,
the last name, Ryan Bates. So we have similar method here. You have a link to add nested, and we have also link to remove nested. And there's a lot of things that we can pass here to customize the functionality of the style and the functionality. The way this works basically is that you will need a partial with the fields of you want to add or remove dynamically, and it will render the partial as a string, and it will add the string with all the HTML content as a data attribute of the tag that we render there in the view. And then we also have the client side part of the gem, that is this JavaScript file with all that connects everything. So it will just, when the application runs, this is set up so it works with turbo links and without turbo links, so it works in both ways. So it's just, when the app starts, it reads all the vanilla nested special classes from those things, and it will connect all the JavaScript. So every time, you don't need to connect anything, it just works. But you can connect to a lot of events that happens during the process of when you are using the application. So you can connect to, I don't know, an event when a field was added, when it was removed, when it was hidden from before undoing, because it gives you more features like undo, and it reads, I don't know, some advanced feature are like you can. It detects that you set a limit on your association, and will trigger some events, so you can act on that. So I don't know, I think we can, if you want, we can check an application that's using the gem and see how it's set up and how it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Okay, so in the same repo, I'm going to use the application that we have in the repository that I'm using for the test of the app. So the first things are that in the gem file, we add the gem. Right now, I'm pointing to the local version because this is the repository, but you wouldn't use this part. And then in the package.json, we have the vanilla nested. I'm also pointing to the local file here, but it will point to my GitHub repo. And then we need different models that we need to associate. So we can add nested forms, and we can use this tool. So one requirement of this for this to work is that we need to use the accepted nested attributes for helper. That's something Rails needs, so the fields for are handled properly in a form when you do nested forms. And when you submit the form, Rails will handle this. We handle everything for you. It will set up everything. It will handle the attributes and all the associations and deletion. And we also have another model that is associated with that. Then, in this case, we are going to have a user with many pets, for example. And you can see here I'm setting a limit of 3, and that this is a feature of Rails that it will validate that you are only that number of associations. And in VanillaNested, when that number is reached, it will trigger an event, so you can react to that, for example. And I don't know, disable the button, or show a warning, or maybe remove the oldest one. I don't know, you can do whatever you want with that. I didn't want to add any default value. One option was to disable that when you reach that limit, but I didn't want to force a behavior. I just emit an event, and somebody can listen to that and react and do something.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that you can set a limit.
Oh yeah, it's when I was doing the research for this gem, I was trying to check what are all the features that you can use for accepted nested attributes for, and what can I automate for that. And yeah, if you don't set a limit, you can do anything. But if you set a limit, I don't know, you can say, I want only 3 pets here. If you try to save a record with more than 3, it will fail. So I wanted to automate that in the gem, in this gem too. So this is a test application, so it has many use cases. So if you go to the app, it has a test for basic usage. It's here, but it can also it showcases how to use custom tags. By default, it creates an anchor tag, an A tag, but you can change that to be a button, I don't know, a span, a div, whatever you want. And it also includes an undo feature. So if you by mistake delete something, you have some time to undo it, but it's also configurable. By default, it doesn't have an undo feature, but you can set up some time out there. So let's see, I have this basic form, and when I click add pet, it will add more fields to this thing, and we don't need to do a request, right? So that's the functionality of the gem. When you click the X here, it will remove that. And for these things to work, let me inspect this button. So you can see here in the button, we have all the HTML that is being added every time you click. It's in the data attribute. So this is the basic idea of how it works. Let me go back to the code to show you how this is actually set up. So if you have your form, right? It's a basic Rails form. And at some point, you have to call the helper. That's called link to add nested. And you have to set up the arguments are the actual form builder you're using here, the name of the association as a symbol, and the ID of the element where you are going to insert the new fields, right? So these are the form come from here. This is the name of the association, and this ID is the one I have here in the ID equal pets. You can put any content you want here. You can add a block if you want to make some complex stuff here, or you can add there's a property link text, an attribute that you can use, linked argument that you can do, I don't know, like add, and you don't need to add a block. So you have the possibility of add only a string or more complex content. Mm-hmm. And this is a basic Rails feature. This is not anything related to the gem, but we need to use fields for the fields for helper. This is connected with accept nested attributes for. We need both working at the same time, so this works. And you just add the name of association, and it will give you a form builder for the association, for each element of the association. And then we are rendering partial with that object. One thing to consider is that the gem by default will fall back to this name, the name of association _ fields. But you can also customize that if you have, let me show you another example. If you have this, a different name for the partial, you will need to add a partial argument to the helper, and you can just use a different name. So by the default is the association in singular _ fields, but you can customize that if it doesn't fit your specs. We do need the partial because it's what we use in the helper to render this in the data attribute. So we need a partial for that, and the partial will just include your form information or your form fields, and we need to add this helper to remove the association, right? It is the same. I'm just adding thing here because this is for the test application, but we can also have link text here and say X, and that's it. But sometimes you want to render an icon, an image tag, or whatever, and you can customize that here. One important thing is that this helper must be a child of this tag, because this uses JavaScript closest method, and it checks for a parent with some ID. So it needs to be a children of that element. If you put this outside, it won't work. But you don't need, it doesn't need to be a direct children. It can be a nested children, and it will work anyway. So that's the basic setup. We have the form rendering a partial, and in these two places we need to add to call the helper, the add to nested to create the add button, and the remove link to remove nested to create the X button. Okay, so after that's connected, we have, for example, here, when I click this button, it will read the HTML from the data attribute, and it will inject that inside this the element with that ID. In this case, it's ID pets. So I do that, I add more things, and when I get to the limit that it was reported by, it was set up in the model, it will trigger an event. By default, it's just triggering the event. So I'm in this test application, I'm connected to that event to render this message. So I can show you how to connect to events so you can react and do whatever you need to, right? So if you go to your JavaScript, I'm importing the VanillaNested gem, and then in the document object, you can listen to all the events that VanillaNested is triggering, and every event will start with this namespace, VanillaNested : and then the name of the event. And for each event, you will have information that you can use. If you have your event object here, you can inspect that, and it will give you the name of the actual element that was added or removed, what thing you click, any information related to that event. There are many events that we can listen to. So for example, let's go back to the README. No, this is not the README, this is the README. So let's see in GitHub because it looks better. So here in the README, we have all those things that I show you is how to set up the accept nested attributes for one important thing is with any Rails nested form, you have to permit the name of the association in plural _ attributes. This is Rails nested forms, a requirement for them. And also with you need to add the _destroy. You need to allow this if you want to remove things from your form. Then it shows you how to use the links helpers. And then we have all the options we can pass to the helpers. We can set a different text, classes. We can say if we want to add the new fields at the top or at the bottom of the list. So we have the insert method. We can do prepend or append. We can change the model partial. We can, if in our partial, the variable is called FF instead of form or whatever name, you can just change that in the also as a variable, because sometimes you need to adapt to a form partial that's already there. So you can customize the name of the partial and the name of the variable that holds the form builder. This is somewhat new feature.
Even the name of the tag.
Yeah, you don't need to always render an A tag. You can render a span, you can render a button, you can render any tag. And I have an idea of an next feature that you can also pass attributes for that tag. So if you want to, I don't know, if you have a tag and you want to pass, I don't know, a tab index, or if you have a button and you want to provide a name attribute, you can do that here, but it's not there yet. And you can also add content as a block and not as a string if you need to add more complex stuff like like tags instead of just text. And you have similar things for the link to remove nested. So we have the same link text or block, classes. Oh, sorry, my dog is barking.
Yeah,
so
that's nice.
if you want, by default, the way this works is it will use the name of the association underscore fields to detect what's the wrapper of your fields, but you can also customize that. Maybe if you depend on a form, on a partial that's already built, you want to say, okay, this is the selector I want to use, for example, and not hashtag some ID. Then let me see. It also has a tag, and this is, I think it's an interesting feature that you can undo the deletion. So if you set up the undo link timeout and the undo link text, you can actually undo the removal before that time happens. So let me go back to the examples here. So there's an example with an undo.
Yeah.
So when I click here, it will give me an undo. Oh, it's too fast. Right now it's set up. Let me change that. So it's with undo. It's too fast right now. So let's do 5 seconds. So if I open the app and I click here, I have 5 seconds to undo this thing. And when I click it, it goes back. So if you click by mistake this button, you can revert that. It's not a problem. You can also connect to the events to prevent the click if you want to show a warning or an alert or whatever. And you can customize the time, and you can customize this string. By default, it says undo, but you can use an icon, I don't know, a recycle icon or whatever. And what else? Let me see. Oh, and then we have all the events. So for each event that happens during the use of the tool, you will have different events on the document object. So you can have, when something is added, you will have this event and with this information. So you can get the name, the container, the link that you clicked. So sometimes you may have different forms in the same page. So you want to know which one was the one that you clicked. You also have fields limit reached. So if you get to the limit, it will send the event. It won't do anything more than sending the event. So if you click more times, it will add more fields and emit more events. So this is not limiting you. It's just sending an event. The same you have for fields removed. So when you click the X, it will trigger this event and you have the information of the thing that was removed. And if you set up an undo time, it will first hide the element. So you have an event for that. And when that gets removed, it will call this event too. So you can connect to those 2 steps during the removal. If you undo the hiding, you can also have this event. So if you click undo, you also have an event for that. And you can redo something that you did when you click the removal. Yeah, I think those are all the features for the gem.
Yeah, actually, there is one of my main applications that is still running Rails 5, and like I went to the gem file and made kind of a plan of things that needs to be changed to use the gem with Rails 6. And some things were like the gem was using Bootstrap 3, and I wanted to use Bootstrap 5, and it requires like some different gems, and then it wouldn't require jQuery. Also, I didn't want to use Cocoon, and like keeping jQuery inside the application because of Cocoon was also kind of holding me back. So I mean, I'm really looking forward to trying to replace Cocoon in an existing application with VanillaNested and seeing how it goes.
Yeah, hopefully the change is not that different, because I was inspired on that gem, so it's using similar helpers, and the basic idea of having partials, nested forms, accept nested attribute form is the same in both. So hopefully it's just replacing the gem, adapting a little bit of the code, but it shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea that it's a new gem. It was built based on the existing knowledge, and it doesn't use jQuery. So, oh, and I love the undo feature.
Yeah, that was something I had to implement at that point using Cocoon, and I had to listen to the events that Cocoon was triggering to add some thing. But I had to do some hacky stuff like listen to the undo, save that information somewhere, then so to the delete, set information, and then adding that thing on my JavaScript. I wanted to have that in this gem because I think it's super related to that, right? It's something you would expect on this thing to handle because you are removing that and you want everything there. But it's optional. By default, it's not doing that. So it's more versatile.
Yeah. And is it your first gem, or have you created gems before?
I did some gems in the past, or were mainly hacky stuff that I needed for work. Maybe extracted something to a weird gem that I only knew how that worked and shared that with my other projects. There was no documentation, no anything. This is the first one that is actually made to be a gem for the public to use, with real research on how to use it, how to do it properly, how to connect with different Rails versions, how to support different things. And it's uploaded to Ruby Gems. So this is the first time I do that. I'm currently working on a different gem. It's not related to this thing, but it's like a wizard interactive Rails new command that lets you add a lot of tools. I know you can run this command and it will ask you, I know you want to use some template handler, and you say, I want RVM, Haml, or Slim. Do you want to use, I know, RSpec or Minitest? Do you want to use simple code? Yes or no? So it asks you a lot of questions of different popular tools, and it will create a new Rails application with all those tools set up for you. It's working. It's there in my GitHub account. I haven't published that yet in Ruby Gems or like on Twitter or anywhere, because it's something I want more people to test before doing a real announcement. But yeah, I think it's like a beta version of the gem.
Yeah, actually, I remember like a year and a half ago or so, I was reading a forum post on the Ruby forum, and there was this discussion about making the Rails new command more interactive. So, I mean, by default, you can just say the name of the app, the name of the database, and which like if you want to include or don't want to include some kind of like action mailbox or action text or something like that. So I guess there were like a few tools that was spun out of that forum. Like there was railsnew.io, then there's this gem boring generators that just has some templates on, like you just run the name of the template and it installs device or something like that. And then like Rubidium and Rails bytes. So kind of couple of public places where you can host your template scripts and run them in an application. So your tool would be like similar, but with the Rails new command.
Yeah, the idea of the gem is to give you all the functionalities to set up the flags for the Rails new command, but also give you more things that are outside of the basic Rails new command. Let me show you. Right now it's so beta that I don't even have a name. It's called Rails new app. So right now it gives you all these different things. So if you want to set up different gems, different databases, this is just setting the flag from the Rails new command. But then, I don't know, if you want to use RSpec, Simple Code, FactoryBot, and Faker, it will also add those gems for you. So it will ask you during the wizard, step by step, what do you want to add and what we don't need. And these are all the things that it's already supporting. So you can set up different tools for your test, different template engines, different form helpers, different pagination gems. This is also setting just one flag for the Rails new command. You can add authorization with bandit or can. You can add authentication with device. You can set up different linters. And one thing that I always have to do when I start a new Rails application is I have to add the remote that I have on GitHub. And I usually like to use main, like we have on GitHub right now, that's the default. So I added this thing that will also make your first new commit, change the name of the branch, and add the remote for you. So you don't need to do all those things manually. It will just ask you during the process. You just press enter at the end, and you see it doing a bunch of stuff, adding gems, doing everything, and you are there with your Junos application with all these tools set up for you. It's the basic setup, then you have to customize and add more things, but at least you have the bare bones working.
Yeah, I really like this idea of setting flags when running your Rails new command, but not, not starting with some kind of just template that you've created a year or 2 years ago, or some kind of random template from the internet, or let's say just finding some kind of script on how somebody once installed device. So, looks kind of promising to me. It's got tests, it's got, what do I need most? I would need like a Ruby linter, so like Rubocop, I would guess, then RSpec, I guess Stimulus, and I like the last one. So git add remote, set branch name, and so on.
Yeah, and some things I want to add to this is, for example, to already set up your desired CI file, or a Docker container, so you don't need to create a new, GitHub Actions file configuration. It will read your setup and will just add the commands you want on GitHub on CI.
Yeah, actually, I like it.
It's already doing that for GitHub Actions.
Yeah, so like always when I install Rubocop, the next step is setting up GitHub Actions for Rubocop. So it, I think it's a must-have.
Yeah, but yeah, this is a beta thing. If people is interested into trying this and give some feedback, that's great. For me, I've used that and it's working, but I haven't tested that in too many places, and I developed this on Linux. So I haven't tested that on Windows, for example. So yeah, if people is interested in this, that's great. You can see that in my GitHub repo.
Cool. Well, okay, Ariel. Thanks a lot for sharing VanillaNested with me and with me today and with the world on GitHub. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to trying to implement it locally and trying to replace Cocoon in running application with VanillaNested.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me here. Yeah, I love to talk about all these things. So I think it's really interesting to be able to show the code and see the reason why I did something, because sometimes I like this idea of when I see a new gem, sometimes I don't understand what's going on. I just use the gem, but I think it's interesting to know why the gem works and how it's done.
I could just do it on my own. I would just open the gem, look at the README, try to implement it locally, and record a video. But it's in my opinion 1,000 times more valuable if I have the opportunity to speak to you, and you know the way you wrote the code better than anybody, and then you go through and explain it and the features of the gem. So thanks for that.
Yeah, that's great. That's a really good idea to have developers talking about their creations. Yeah.
Okay, so then cheers.
Great, thank you.